I'm a psychologist working in this correctional research branch in Singapore Prison Service. So in this 5-minute sharings, we just have 3 key things that we wanted to cover. I think it doesn't do justice to the amount of efforts my colleague have done, but we only have 5 minutes, so I'll try my best to cover them through. So what I wanted to share was about research impacting practice. So in the past, we have done quite a number of desistance research. We look at self-efficacy, desistance at the workplace, the importance of family support in desistance, and recently we have looked at the gender-responsive literature in terms of desistance process for female offenders, because it's different from our male offenders. And more recently, we have also looked at cultural aspects of desistance. So I think all in all, it's very consistent with the general literature about tertiary desistance, the importance of social relationship and sense of belonging. And as an encouragement to all researchers and academics here, we actually have an impact in the sense whereby we focus on the social relationships. I think my colleagues at the conference will share more about the desistance network, because the whole idea is about desistance. And then something else that we have, I think is of interest is desistance doesn't have to start when they're out in the community. What about bringing it forward while they're inside prisons? How can we begin this process for them? So we have created opportunities like Peer Supporters Academy, whereby it gives them a sense of identity to start building the desistance process. So this is just some of the impact of our desistance research. Another example that we have is also of our elderly offenders in prisons. We have conducted studies that profile them to really know who they are, what are their motivations for those with a late onset of offending, because they're quite different. We tend to pick this up from trends overseas in Japan and all, where we realize that there's a late onset of offending for them. Yeah, so the impact of these studies, what we do is that for the elderly offenders, we do recognize that they have a different reintegration need as compared to the other types of offenders. So what more could we help them with when they're in the community? A lot of them, when they go out, they don't have family support and all. What could we do better by engaging them in active aging, for example? That's a concept that we have in Singapore. And we also examine the length of community-based programs that we can provide them with. Yeah, these are some of the findings that these are some of the implications that we have from our findings. So this is 2 examples of how research has impacted our practice. Yeah. So more recently, I think we are big fans of acronyms, so I'm not going to try to pronounce the name of the study. But basically, it was a study called PRIME study, whereby we look at incarcerated mothers and their child's health. So I think 2 of the key findings that I wanted to highlight was about incarcerated mothers. The word that is seen there is higher prevalence of adverse childhood experiences, as well as traumatic stress symptoms that these mothers face. And the other key finding that we have from these studies was about caregivers. So another word that we see there is struggles. So the struggles with complex feelings, as well as having to negotiate post-release caregiving duties. Because once the moms were in prisons, the caregivers were looking after their children for them. And when they go out, this handing on of these caregiving duties to them is a complex process that we have found from this study. Yeah, I think another study that we have done recently was about, I think it was mentioned by our minister, whereby 1 in 5 drug abusers will have a child who comes into the system and have a record of offending. And in that study, a specific finding that we want to highlight was family support was a key protective factor for their children. So from these 2 recent development studies that we have found, in terms of implication to practice, it identified 2 key areas that we wanted to explore further. What more can be done to mitigate the effects of adverse childhood experiences, as well as its improving mental health? And another one, what are the needs of the caregivers and their family members? So those were 2 gaps that we have identified from these recent studies that we have conducted. Yeah. So the next slide is about our research activities and studies. What we plan to do or hope to do is to deep dive into the needs of families of offenders. I think the more difficult part about this is from the family's point of view. We are moving away from the offender's point of view by really going to their family members and reaching out to them and finding out what do they feel are their needs in that sense. Yeah. The main idea is to help, how can we strengthen the families to promote the process of desistance for the offenders. Yeah. Another study that we are planning to embark on is to examine the nexus between adverse childhood experiences and mental health in offending behavior. Yeah. So I think as the purpose of us sharing here is we are happy to hear insights in relation to these two topics or possibilities for collaboration, and you could approach either me or Selina after our sharing to discuss further. Yeah. One last thing is about our efforts in research networking, because I think in prisons ourselves, we don't have all the mindshare and knowledge about correctional research. So we actually form a correctional science research network. It formed in 2023. The main aim is to enhance our research capabilities and build up the local correctional community knowledge so that we all can all learn and share with each other the knowledge that we have found. And it's to expand this national network in our sense. Yeah. We work together with local stakeholders and partners such as institutes of higher learning, as well as partner ministries and statutory boards in this collaboration. And we actually had an inaugural correctional research symposium held in 2023, whereby the network members were involved as repertoires and commenters in our research symposium. Yeah, so that's all I have for our sharing.